Hello, and welcome back to Dear Genevieve. Thanks to those who watched and subscribed last week. I'm pretty overwhelmed with the amount of support I'm getting for this channel. I apologize for this post coming out on Friday instead of Tuesday as originally promised. This week was pretty busy between work, extracurriculars, and a certain toddler who was quite cranky. On a related note, I'd like to introduce you to the concept of procrastination, the practice of putting off deadlines because you're not happy with the quality of your work. All that being said, I'm going to be targeting Wednesday evenings for posting deadlines for the next little while. That seems to work best for my schedule. I'm going to introduce a few concepts from social sciences today that we're going to touch on again in the future. I'll start with a general description of what the concepts are, and then I'm going to get more specific on how it applies to you. The topic of today's discussion will be social dynamics. I'll be touching on topics like ingroups versus outgroups, conformity versus individuality, and why not everyone's going to like you, but that's okay. Let's start with a Venn diagram. As you can tell from this graphic, we have two circles, a red circle and a blue circle. The red circle indicates people that you like, and the blue circle indicates people who like you. Notice that it's a smaller area where the two overlap, where you would like the person who also likes you. What does this mean? It means that the majority of people that you like aren't going to like you, and the majority of people who like you, you're probably not going to like either. But there is a happy minority where you're going to like them and they're going to like you too. But why wouldn't people like me, you ask? I'm a great person and people should like me. You can be the best person out there, but it doesn't mean that people are going to like you. The reasons why people like and dislike each other may not always be simple. Sometimes people like each other for superficial reasons, like the clothes that they wear or the music they listen to. Sometimes those reasons are more complex, like you have the same weird sense of humor. The reasons why people can dislike you are the same. Oftentimes it has nothing to do with you at all, and it's just the way that they perceive you. You might remind them of somebody who hurt them in the past. Or it might be something superficial, like they don't like your hair or your clothes. The important thing to remember is, don't blame yourself if somebody doesn't like you. It may not have anything to do with you at all. Believe it or not, knowing that there's a group of people out there who dislike you is actually beneficial to you. What? That makes no sense, you say. How can it be good to not have people like me? You're going to meet a lot of people in the course of your life, and it's going to be a challenge to figure out who's truly got your best interest at heart and who's just trying to use you. To have a group of people that's already self-selected out means that you don't have to sort through them too. I know this advice isn't going to take the sting out of things if you're ever shut out of a group you want to be in, but trust me, when you look back on things, you're going to realize that it was better for you all along. Let's talk about cliques or cliques, however you decide to pronounce that. What exactly is a clique anyway? Imagine you're in a group of 100 people. That's pretty overwhelming. Imagine trying to remember 100 people's names, what they like, what they dislike, what their personal histories are, who their friends are, that kind of thing. It's a lot for our brains to try to remember. So you'll notice that anytime there's a group that big, generally there's a lot of smaller groups within that. Each of these smaller groups is considered to be a clique. To put it simply, a clique is a group of people who interact with each other more frequently and more intensely than other people in the same setting. You'll notice in most settings with a lot of people, like at class, at school, at your extracurriculars, or even when you're older at work, that cliques tend to form naturally. Unfortunately, cliques can lead to a lot of interpersonal drama and can be very draining. In the social sciences, terms like in-groups and out-groups have been coined to discuss these phenomena. An in-group is a social group to which a person self-identifies as being a member. An out-group, by contrast, is everybody else. Using the cliques I mentioned before as an example, those who identify as being part of the clique are in the in-group, whereas everybody outside the clique is in an out-group. Those within in-groups tend to favor others within the same in-group. The flip side of this is that people in the out-group tend to be perceived as threats to the people in the in-group. This perception can be either on a conscious level or a subconscious level. Either way, this can lead to putting down members of the out-group. I'm going to circle back to talking about in-groups and out-groups in a minute, but for now I'm going to change tack. Let's talk about conformity and individuality. A quick web search shows that conformity is the act of matching attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors to group norms. Norms are like unwritten, informal rules that govern how a group acts and behaves. Basically, conforming means doing what everyone else in the group is doing. A group can be small, like a handful of friends, or can be big, like an entire country. Sometimes conformity can be beneficial, like when everybody drives on the same side of the road and follows traffic signals. There's a certain amount of conformity that we need to adhere to in order to function in today's society. Following laws, for example. Of course, conformity can also have a bad side. If you've ever heard the phrase, "I was just following orders," well, that's a pretty good example of how conformity can be bad. One effect of conforming to a group is the idea of groupthink. Groupthink is a phenomenon whereby group members have their individual thoughts and ideas blunted by their desire to conform with the group. This often means that most people's ideas are pushed aside by the loudest members of the group. Conformity is often the easiest path to follow. You're basically just going with the flow or following the herd. However, by conforming too much, you risk losing your individual identity. The group may end up doing things that go against your beliefs and ideals, and you'll feel pressured to go along with that. On the other end of the spectrum, we have individuality. Individuality encompasses the traits and characteristics of a person that distinguish them from the rest of the people around them. Your desires, wishes, and goals are yours and yours alone. So by that definition, where you want to go is part of your individuality. In order to follow your dreams, you're going to have to step out from the crowd and forge your own path at some point. It's harder to blaze your own trail than to follow the rest of the crowd, but ultimately, it's the only way to live your own life and be true to yourself. The challenge is finding that balance between conformity and individuality. You need to be able to conform enough to function within society while being able to accomplish your own dreams and goals. Regardless of which way you decide to go, there's always going to be naysayers out there who tell you you're doing the wrong thing. My advice is to grow a thick skin from the beginning, because these criticisms should not affect you. But remember this, you're the one who has to deal with the consequences of your actions. You're the one who has to live with that day in and day out, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, inside your own head. The people pressuring you one way or another don't have to deal with that. So why would you let somebody parachute into your life, push you in a direction, and then leave before they have to deal with the outcome? Live your life for yourself, not for other people's expectations. But be a doctor anyways. Why are we talking about these abstract social science concepts anyways? Well, here's how it comes together. You are going to end up both on the inside and on the outside of these social groups or cliques throughout your life. You'll know if you're part of an in-group if the members of the group talk to you frequently and invite you to group events. If you feel excluded, or that people are talking behind your back, or that you're only there for them to make fun of, you're on the outside. When you're on the inside of a group, try to keep aware whether your opinions and ideas are being shut out by the rest of the groupthink. If the group's actions start going against your ideals, for example, if they start picking on someone else just because they're different, you have 3 options. You can speak up, which might risk your membership in the group. You can vote with your feet and leave, or you can sacrifice your individuality just to get along with the group. However, if the group's actions hurt others and you haven't taken one of the first 2 options, you need to accept some of the responsibility for hurting those people. When you're on the outside of a group, remember that if they're picking on you, it may not have anything to do with you personally at all. Oftentimes, in-group members will pick on out-group members to make themselves feel superior or just out of boredom. It's crappy when a group chooses you as their victim to pick on. In those situations, the best thing you can try to do is leave. If you can't do that and you're forced to interact with these group members, the next best option is to try to control your emotions. Try to stay neutral and even, and don't let them see that they're affecting you. When people pick on you, it's because they're trying to elicit a response which gives them dominance over you. If you can compartmentalize your emotions of hurt and anger at being picked on, oftentimes they will get bored and move on. At the end of the day, regardless of what situation you've been put in, you have choices that you can make. Your responsibility is to be aware of the consequences of your choices and to be prepared to face them. I'll continue to discuss these topics in greater depth in future episodes. If you agree with my parenting style and want to share this with your friends, please feel free to link them to my vlog. As always, subscribers are also welcome. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you check out the next episode as well.